Your patron has already arrived. He's occupied at the moment and not yet ready for visitors. You warm up by the fire and have a mug of ale. While you wait, tell us all about your adventures in Phelan. I'm Lore Master Matt.
I'm Phelan Jon.
And welcome back to the Sleeping Grush podcast, your source for information from every corner of the world of Phelan. We are brought to you today, as we are every day, by Cardboard Corner Cafe, the best gaming cafe in the Kansas City area, now with 2 locations, Little Nexa Public Market and Overland Park. If you're in the Kansas City area, make sure you stop by for great games, great food, and great beverages.
Okay, so what's on your paint table, Matt? Let's talk about that first.
Well, let's talk about that first. All right, so after last week's gauntlet from Jon.
Remind me about that.
So you
did
said
I challenge you?
You did.
What did I say? I don't remember.
You said, "Are you painting these? What's more likely that you're painting these to make me look bad or to play a game?"
Oh yeah,
and I took that personally.
Yeah, because it's really number one.
And,
but you're going to get a game in just to spite me.
Not a game. I'm going full bore with you.
Okay. All right. Do both. Show me up.
Yeah, I'm going to do both, right? I can do both of these things. I've already told Jon I was going to kick him around the field a couple times.
Yeah, let's go.
So I have our crawlins on the table. You've probably seen on the Discord, the painting channel, that I put up a test run last week for some of our crawlin colors. I went ahead and filled out that free band, and I've got them on the table right now. In fact, I've got them in the room with me right now because I'm going to try them out tonight. Give them a little test drive around the tabletop and see what's going on with them. So
we won't take any photographs though, since they're not painted.
There's one you could take a photograph at a very weird angle and maybe it would look okay.
Get that model.
Otherwise, it's the Gray Brigade. So, yeah. So for Spike and Win today, you had a very interesting game last week against producer Jager.
Was it interesting?
Was it?
I don't know. Let's ask Jager. Once again, dear listeners, not all communication is verbal.
He
did give us some American Sign Language for go to hell.
He's settling into a pattern over there.
Jager's working on some things he wants to do with his. And he's right here producing our podcast.
He's
going to correct. He's going to correct me if I deviate from the truth. Has a free band design he's working on and wants to have the book thrown at it.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
All the classic enemies, all the classic strategies and tactics that he might encounter during a competitive play.
So you didn't throw the book at it. You threw the book before it became a book at it.
Right. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. That's very well said. We'll let the listeners bend their brains over what Matt just said. So, and I'm not a big fan of these free band or army list nicknames. I just got to stand on my own soapbox for a moment about that. I went to a tournament in a game. We're not going to say what it is. It wasn't Free Blades. It was another game. And it was in an environment I'm not normally in. So it wasn't like I was around my pals. It was people that were at a game store. And we were playing at a tournament. And I didn't know anybody there hardly, and they didn't know me. And a person came over as I was getting my stuff out onto the miniatures game, getting my stuff out onto the table, and said, "Oh, that's so-and-so's list." Right? I wasn't aware that you could claim them. And without having any idea what they were talking about, apparently some top performer in some major tournament had just played and been on Twitch or whatever,
right,
and had used the same forces I had. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know about the tournament they played in.
I'm trying to imagine the look on your face.
Took my point, but yeah, it was disdain. It's
exactly what I got.
It's sort of like whatever, So, so we have these nicknames. They're named after the people that played them in some big event, or they're named after like a jokingly structured thing. And so what Jager asked me to play against him was euphemistically referred to as a dirty trillion. Okay. And there's a lot of different ways to take them. The theory is that you max out both shooting and blade dancing by taking a Blade Rider first dismounted, 2 Blade Riders, also on foot, and 2 mist dancers, and salt to taste. You know, so you've got 5 models that are very slippery, and all of them shoot to some degree or another. Now, the thing that people don't tell you is that they're all squishy.
Right.
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 The Blade Riders are 2-1 models with armor 4. They've got a parry, but they're not super defensive. And the Myth Dancers are naked, but they've got 1 extra wound, 1 extra life point. So you can't get into some kind of, just like the Eclipse, you can't get into a knockdown, drag out, stand up fight with Herdellans or Valor or whoever else, or Chakram,
as it may be.
So, and you've got to do some prep work with your shooting. A competent player, you're not going to blow some model off the table against competent play. Typically, anything I say here can be caveated with if you throw a 37, anything happens.
Right.
Besides that, typically, expected value, you're not going to smoke some model off the table, but you can prep a couple, and that did matter, right? There are a couple of models that had a wound taken away through shooting that mattered later on when push came to shove. Bottom line is, I thought Jaeger played extremely well. It had nothing to outcome, which was a win for me. Did not have anything to do really with Jaeger making some massive mistake. We could talk about one move that might have been questionable.
I know this,
and I was feeding it, and one of the things I wanted to sort of showcase there was not all the game is played on the table. Right. And so in my case, when I'm playing someone, and I'm not giving away trade secrets because I've said it a million times and people don't believe me, so I don't care about saying it because I know I'm not going to get believed. I will act like I'm on my back foot when I'm not. Right. And it works. Well, I don't think it works. I don't think I'm mystifying anybody with a Ka the snake kind of hypnotism here. I just think that, it's not causing them to pause. Right. Right. And a pause at that moment for Jaeger when he had killed a guy that I wasn't expecting to lose, a Myth Dancer, failed a morale test, was pushed right against the table and run off by his leader, right? Yeah. He's a Leak Warrior leader. Right. Not a bad call.
Pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah. And took a life point from this Myth Dancer, away from my leader, failed his morale test, and was right next to the table edge. And that's where the side I was on. I wasn't careful about my positioning. So when he came up against me, directly away from him is 4 inches way off the edge of the table or whatever it was. So I'm down a model. I drop my loot, because we're trying to get our loot off the other edge, opposite edge. Right. And so he's got a loot advantage. He starts grabbing it up and heading for the corner. And I also agree with that move. He did a big student body left from my perspective, student body right from Jaeger's. And so my models were kind of spread across the back line to see if that was going to be something that was going to be in play. So my right-hand side guys were not out of position to do a lot of damage. I had to scurry over to where the ultimate battle was fought, which is in the left corner of the table on my side.
It was really weird because, you guys had this huge, massive table that was empty.
We're playing a full square at the end. So the key moment is we've got a steel fang with a couple of loot markers, either the one she began with, or pick one up from somebody, or pick one up from me, And his leader gets off, and return to camp. It's 1d4 plus whatever before you come back, unless you're fast. Right. So in a 9-turn game, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, you're halfway through, you might not come back at all. So you got to decide what to do. So the 2 things that maybe Jaeger could have done differently was once he had the advantage, stay together. Mm-hmm. Don't let me isolate a couple of models like I did, and wait to run off until you all run off at the same time, because when that leader left, he was gone. The most powerful unit on the table, probably better than my Blade Rider first leader. Combat, melee. Yeah. Left the table not to come back for nothing. Right. And so the other model with the loot got to drop it next. Now I can work on victory points at that point. So, but a well-played game, a great game, and I really think accomplished the objective of Jaeger got to take this thing and test it and kind of refine what he's doing against, something that he's likely to see. This is the kind of force, whether it comes in the flavor of Eclipse or Bandits or Trillions, this type of slippery, the guys like to get away from you, they blade dance away. Or use whatever other talents, harasser, elusive and harasser. It's that kind of non-stand-up fight force you got to play against, and practice against, so your what's going on? He had me in the middle of the game when that miscancer died. He was in the driver's seat, and I acted like he was in the driver's seat because I wanted to, all right, we're going to take it right off the table. We're going to win this thing, please, please, please. So I think he'll like just zoning me out. I said, bring your Beats. Right, your earbuds with you next time. When it's your turn, just put them in, make your moves.
That's right.
I'll be like, my lips will be moving, no sound will be coming out. Hey, All right, so great game. I think we did exactly what we wanted to do. I look forward to the next one where he's tweaking it and we come back in there.
Push it
I find out what's the next thing he wants me to throw at him, because I have it all. Because we just make them.
We do.
If I don't have one, Matt, I need you to cast me or whatever it is I'm missing.
Right. That's right. I'm going to walk six steps over to the warehouse and
I don't have enough skirmishers. Bring another mold over.
All right. Well, our main topic today is our 2025 tournament pack, which is just freshly out. It was announced right after the final game of the tournament at Adepticon. And it is, well, I'll let you talk about it because it's a big deal. It's the way that we do tournaments now is a big deal. We've been doing it. This is our second year. So what is the tournament pack, John? I think is the big question.
The easy answer is we'd like to give the players some predictability. And we all come from, especially the three members of the design team in DGS, come from a long history of competitive play, in our various games, Jeff and Colin and I. So we've seen it done every way it can be done.
Right.
So you have two kinds of tournaments. Well, there's really three. There's two kinds of tournaments. Tournaments the company puts on and tournaments the company doesn't put on.
Right.
The tournaments the company doesn't put on, the person putting it on has to make a decision. Do I fall in line with whatever they're doing in Nottingham or Auckland or whatever,
wherever,
or do I run my own thing and do something different, And there's different versions of that. There's leagues and all kinds of other formats. So more times than not, competitive play groups follow the lead of whatever is being done with the bigger tournaments of the year the company is putting on, so that people can use those to practice for the bigger events.
Right.
That's the thing, right?
It's a smart thing.
Yeah, and those who are independent of that enough don't need to be told to blow off the tournament pack, right? They're going to do it on their own, which is good. It's absolutely good. Yeah. We don't make these rules to tell you how to play them. We make these rules so you can use a toolkit to have the games go the way you want.
Exactly.
Like Brandon's campaign for, Inner C, not exactly the way we wrote it. We don't care. It's awesome.
Right.
He did a different way. It suited his group, and we kind of jealous. I would have liked to have played in the way he did it, So, but we have to have some kind of standard.
We do.
And it's fun, and we have to try new things. Try some new things out. So the tournament pack is a short PDF available for free in the download section of our website that describes how we're going to run tournaments from the end of one Adepticon to the end of another.
Right.
So this last Adepticon was run on the 24-25 pack. 25-26 pack goes into effect as soon as that tournament's over and runs for a year. So that just gives guidance on the number of gold coins you have to recruit and some other format things that we're going to use when we put on events.
Right.
So
what did we do? I mean, it's only been a couple of years now that we've been running tournaments.
This is the second time.
Right. So how did we handle tournaments before that?
We had, we've always taken into account player feedback on what they want. So we'd say, hey, what point value do you want? And part of the reason we went to a tournament pack is because some of that feedback was, hey, we'd like to see X, and could you leave it that way for a while?
Right.
Instead of having it be 250 at one event or a 200-point follower event the next one, and then, so people can plan out their deal and get a little extra games in.
Sure.
Get good with the list. Yeah. We also always have to be sensitive to, Matt does that intro where he talks about Cardboard Corner Cafe being, the best game cafe in Kansas City, because it is. Not just because they sponsor us. It's our home store, and we are, even saying that, Kansas City in general is a great place to be a gamer.
It is.
It's
It's
just
an
places
amazing place to be a gamer.
everywhere. And as much as we're loyal to Cardboard Corner, I'd play it, I'd play a game night, I'd play at the cafe, I'd play at Mind Games, there's a number of stores across the Kansas City metro that are all awesome to play at.
Yeah.
So we are just covered for that, and we're covered in terms of players,
Right.
people to get games in with. Some people in a more isolated location got a smaller game store, not a lot of room to play, not a lot of product,
Right.
maybe not a lot of players, and just haven't met somebody that wants to play free plays with them yet, whatever. And so how many chances do they get?
Right.
So we have to be sensitive to that, because we're acting like, oh, we played 250 this week, we'll play 275 next week, and the other person's trying to catch up. I haven't even played my 250 game because she didn't have the same opportunity.
Right.
So it's part of that also, is to give people predictability and something to kind of latch onto, and the theme part is for fun.
Right. It gives the flavor to the year's different tournaments, and something that we want to explore. So, what is the season theme?
This season's theme is, the pack is called The Bridge to the Future. And the reason we call it that is because the theme is the scenarios that we're using. We don't have a global special rule like we did with the aces in the previous pack. What we have is the scenarios are designed the way we're leaning to do them for 2.0. The scenarios are going to get a revision in terms of how they're structured. Same goals, same format, same thing you're trying to do, but a slightly different way of counting victory, right? And also a thing we've never had before, which is a tournament. Right? It's pretty open-ended in the past. And so that has allowed us to do other things with our time, with not having a completely open-ended game. So it's not final that we're going to do that, but we've played these a while and we really liked them. We've had some good responses to them. So the scenarios are set up so that they are looking like we are pretty sure we're going to have the new ones. We're going to tweak them. There might be a little bit of commercial play testing going on here, but we're not charging you.
I mean, that's true.
So we didn't pay anything to help us out. If we bring some data points back in,
sure,
we didn't make you pay for the privilege. So.
And we're always looking for those anyways. I mean, every time somebody plays a game, we're looking for those kind of data points.
We made a change today to a rule that's been in the game since the day it came out. Ooh. A one-word change, because somebody felt that was clearer to them. And we did it a few minutes after they asked. Nice. You show me another company that does that.
That's right. That's right.
It doesn't happen. Okay.
Get the minds together and go.
Minds. Well,
what's left of these friends?
Yeah, right, yes. So
if a player wants to take a look at the direction that we're going as far as scenarios, a great way to do that would be to pick up this.
Yeah, even if they're not playing competitive events, you get some insight into that.
Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. So what scenarios, you said that there are scenarios that we've done before, same feel, same objectives, just a different way to play them. What scenarios are in the packet?
I'm not sure. I remember most of the standard scenarios are in there. I think 10 out of the 14 are in there. I'd actually have to look at it.
Okay.
I know the two I just played.
And what were those?
Return to Camp with Jaeger, and I played... he's scrolling his phone, so he's opening the PDF to help us out. And we played Trials of Gravity. Chris and I did.
Right.
And so Trials, same thing. You were going to the trial stones and solving them the same way you always had, the same way you had for years. Thank you, producer Jaeger.
Almost
timely assistance. Yeah. So Advanced Guard, Bounty Hunt, Camp Raid, Domination, Frontier, The Gall Must Be Crazy.
Ooh.
Looting Spree, Return to Camp, Skirmish, and the Trials of Gravis. And we just played two of those. Jake and I played Return to Camp, Chris and I played Trials. So the objectives of those two scenarios were the same, right? One of the things this changes is it modifies the impact of breaking your opponent on the way the game is scored.
Right.
We've had a long-standing, split in the community about whether that was a good thing or not. And we've had a real difficult time explaining to people why things worked the way they did. And it just seemed like nothing we were trying was working.
Yeah.
So we just abandoned doing it, ultimately.
Right.
It wasn't worth the squeeze. So you get up to 9 victory points by doing the things that you always have done, including breaking your opponent, right? But the game ends because you got to the turn limit or somebody got to 9.
Right.
Right? Not because of other things that might have ended the game in the past.
Right.
So in return to camp, we both start with 3 loot markers. We're trying to get them off the opposite edge of the table. That's what Jaker and I were trying to do last week. The week before, when Chris and I played, we were trying to solve the trial stone, solve more trial stones, get more victory points. And each one has ways of doing that. We might tweak them,
Sure.
But I've played enough of these, and we've had other players play enough of them. We used it for a tournament here a month or 2 ago, and everybody liked them.
Right.
So, and they do play a little faster.
They do.
Over the course of all these events, we've seen that we've gotten a little less time it takes to play the games. And that is going to go hand in glove with what we're talking about for 2.0 with other things, which will be talked about later. So it's 10 of the 14 standard scenarios, one-on-one competitive scenarios from the rule book, done slightly differently. That's really all there is to it. And the only other component of it is 275 gold.
Right.
The free band. So
I am a Free Blaze organizer. I'm a quester. I'm a TO out in the field someplace, right? Middle of nowhere, America. And I want to put on a tournament for my players. We've got a little local scene. We've got some folks that are kind of close that we can probably bring in. Do I have to use the tournament pack?
No.
What can I do instead?
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, that's the thing. We're trying to, that's what we'll see, because we've seen it in all kinds of other places. I mean, gamers are gamers, right?
They are.
So you have those groups that, because they're playing regularly, they're playing a lot, and they're sending people to the cons, the big cons, and those people are going to go. Often those people, somewhere in that mix is their alpha.
Right.
They're going to go to Adepticon or ReaperCon or Gen Con or Mid-Mitten or whatever the event is, right? They're going to go to these events. And they're running the thing, or they're part of a smaller group that's running things back in their groups. Every game group's got the same design.
Right.
There's 1 or 2 people who run 90% of events in that game, system.
Right.
There's you walk into your store. Oh, that's Bob. He's the Infinity player.
That's right.
That's Jennifer.
Mr. Infinity.
Just Mrs. or Ms. X-Wing. Right? The same thing was, that's those are the Free Blades guys, and so always runs events. It's just nature, human nature. So if you have a group like that, they are generally going to be the ones that follow the tournament pack.
Yeah.
Because the people are getting a twofer. They're playing a great event with their friends back in their home store, and they get a little practice in kind of a realistic situation before they go off to whatever con,
the bigger ones,
and play something that we put on that has this format.
Right.
If you are a game group that doesn't send people to those kinds of things, you are more. This isn't like 1-for-1.
Sure.
But it's more likely you'll go, no, I'm not going to do that. I heard about that follower tournament format. We want to do that.
We want to try that,
we're going to make a crazy point value so you can just barely, like 251. You can get a 7th hero, but you're going to get a 7th hero, because you're not going to have anything else. And so they experiment with those, because why not?
Sure.
Right? Or maybe they mix it up. Maybe they do one of these scenarios with this new format, but do it with a different goal value.
Yeah.
That's wrong with that.
Yeah.
At all.
In fact, we encourage it.
Yeah. We encourage you to do with Free Blaze what you want to do with it. Yes. Across the board.
So as far as the tournaments that we know about right now, what tournaments do we know are going to use the tournament pack rules?
Gen Con, ReaperCon, Mid-Mitten, and next year's Adepticon, for sure. I've seen questers talking about putting on other events. I don't honestly know off the top of my head who's chosen to follow the tournament pack and who's not.
Right.
And that's up to them, like we said.
Right.
But I'd have to go back. Maybe in Discord they've said it already. We plan to do this and use the tournament pack. Or we've just talked about what date, but we haven't decided what the deal is yet.
I was talking with Jacob earlier this week about the CantCon
Right.
event and the tournament we want to do there. And I think we're going to follow the tournament pack except for the gold value, and we're going to do a starter box tournament. But with the
So just a question about that. When you say starter box, is it 150 gold, take it the way you want, or you got to take a starter box the way it's designed? Okay, that's cool. I think that should be out there.
Yeah.
I think that should be one of the options people have to play. That's all I need. I know what I'm gonna face.
Yep.
Yep. And so it's a great intro.
It's and it's something that we just haven't done.
Not lately. Not here. Not lately. Yeah.
Right. So. All right. So if anybody has questions about the tournament pack, and I'm sure that a few people do, and maybe they need some guidance to help run it or whatever, where could they drop those questions?
My direct messages at 3 a.m. because that's what you guys do. I'm just saying, right? We are I will throw this gauntlet down right now. We are the most transparent game company in the business.
Yeah.
We're tiny, but you can't kill us.
That's right.
Right. But also, we have, when we talked about it before here in the Sleeping Grush, that transparency makes us also friends with a great number of our players.
It does.
Right? They're buddies. And so a conversation about something else will turn into a customer service request on Facebook Messenger or Discord DMs or whatever, text message,
right?
At whatever godly hour. No, Frank, go to customer service. It's just hard to go tell this person it's a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Go do that. So yes, I'm not going to say no to that, but please, I'm probably going to mess with you a little bit. There are places on Discord for this sort of thing. I would choose tournament announcements if it was about this.
Yes,
it would be the formal place to do it. We would prefer that.
We would.
We have a responsibility to answer questions like that in official channels. You might get blown off if you send me a text at 3 a.m.
At least for a few hours.
No, if it's at 5, it'll be a few hours. If it's at 3, I'm probably still awake. And they know that too. I'm just about to turn things off, right? Yeah. So the official place would be the Discord is probably the best. The tournament announcements channel is the best for that. And that way everybody can see the end. That's the most important thing.
Right.
I told that to someone the other day. They asked me a question. It was a really good question. They asked me in direct messages in Discord, and if I answered them there, that would be the only person that saw the answer.
Right.
Why not ask me out? And a lot of sometimes it'll happen. Oh, I don't want to give away this question because
okay,
because you're right. Because you've got some master plan that's going to make you the top player of all the free blades, and if this question gets out in the open, your shit's weak.
It's gone. Yeah, my chances.
No. Okay, sorry to burst your bubble. The answer to that is no. Or they're embarrassed by it.
Right.
Or could feel like they could potentially just ask the question.
Right.
Trust me, I guarantee you, if you're going to ask me a question on a private message service because you're concerned about the embarrassment that is attached to the question and answer, you have already been outdone.
That's true.
I'll point to 5 questions on Discord out in the public if we're going to embarrass anybody. And Jacob's Producer Jacob's taking a hit for the team by holding up his hand and say, "Yes, it's me."
Listen, I
did not have you in mind, sir.
I'm gonna play these Far Crawlers for the first time tonight, and I'm probably gonna have a couple of dumb questions because you won't
have to DM me. I'll be the
right. Right, exactly. I don't. Not only do I have to not do this publicly, right? I can, and I don't have to out myself as an idiot.
No, that old adage of the only stupid question that one isn't asked is true.
That's right.
Just ask it.
That's right.
Okay, it's going to benefit others.
Exactly.
And that makes you a hero.
That's right.
So just put it out there.
You're the brave one.
Yeah. That way we can answer it quickly. And the answer is heard by other people, which of course causes them to ask refining questions in my direct messages. Separate subject. We're not going to get to the second order effects here. It does happen.
It does. All right. Before we move on to the job board, is there any other thoughts you have about the tournament pack that you'd like to share with people? Any closing thoughts on that?
We do want your feedback. We are. We're happy with these scenarios, but just like the reason we have a living rule book, that you can always improve. Just like today, we had a rule that's been out there for 13 years, right? And today we made a 1-word modification to it. Why not? If some of that helps somebody, it didn't hurt either way, right?
Right.
And so there might be something in there. We had a question early on about the gall might be crazy because if you get a caster, you get a second spell list. What if you get a bard?
Oh, yeah.
Right? That was early on. So that allowed us, that one had caused us to go back and look at the whole issue of the support model, right? These other models with focus, like you have in your free band tonight,
Yes.
Lore Master Matt, and performers, the Wild Wing and the Bards, ought to have that same status. And they're getting that same status in this new design, this new edition, where they kind of have a equal play with casters.
Right.
And that slot is for them, to be in.
Support.
Yeah. So, because that's the easiest name to call them.
Right.
I think it can be primary, but the support model slot is the best way to go about it. So feedback on them, you play them, and what do you think? If you're trying one out, in your local game store because you want to see how this all plays out, and you run into something you don't understand, or you think it'd be done better, just tell us.
Right.
We'll listen. Yep. So
Discord is always open.
Always.
The DMs.
Oh, yeah. The DMs are always open. I just, I don't want to open them. That's the
thing. All right, so let's move on to the job board. We've been getting, since we started talking about Freeblades 2.0, which is just what we're calling it for now.
There's nothing wrong with 2.0.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
It has a name. But since we've been talking about Freeblades 2.0, we've been having a lot of questions about when we're going to release this, how we're going to release this, how soon, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Blah, blah.
Let me pull all those together, as part of our job.
Package them up really nice.
So the challenge is this. We've been talking about it in terms of, we call it the Streamline Project because we're streamlining Freeblades. Sometimes other companies, when they do an edition upgrade, change the way the game works.
Right.
In a fundamental way.
Yeah.
And we're doing that in a way in terms of the way initiative works. Mm-hmm. But everything else, it tests and the mechanics and how important a certain talent is or not, the way a model hits somebody or casts a spell, those things aren't changing.
It's going to be very easily recognizable as Freeblades.
Yeah, No, it is Freeblade.
Yeah.
We'll have the model activation system is there, not just to be different.
Right.
It deliberately addresses some of the concerns our players have.
That's right.
We ask them, what's hard to teach? What's hard to remember? Mm-hmm. What do you hate?
Yep.
Okay. And this way of changing initiative, by single model alternate activations, addresses those. We're not doing it just to do it.
Right.
We're doing it because one package addressed all that stuff at once. Okay. So the issue is this. There is typically when a company announces a new addition to a game, there's a drop off in play while people wait for it.
Right.
Okay. We don't want that.
We do not.
Okay. So because the models that are coming on, things that we're doing are going to stay excited. We're not like all of a sudden temporarily out of stock in the game store.
Right.
No new releases.
Right.
Everything's just going to proceed right along.
Yeah.
So our plan is we have a list of things that we are going to do with this edition. And I'm going somewhere to the question. Just bear with me.
I'm here for the ride, sir.
Right. So are they, we're the only two left. Everybody else is left.
A new edition. Well,
yeah. Well, listen to 20 minutes. That sucker. So there's this drop off. We're concerned about that because we're going to continue to give you everything we always give you right up until the last moment.
Right.
Okay. So we have determined that there are things that we are doing to streamline the rules, to make them faster and better, more understandable, easier to teach, less things that you kind of trip over, because it's too crunchy. Right. We're going to smooth it, not make it dumber.
Right.
Okay. We're going to make it cooler. And it is cooler. I'm playing it.
It is.
Right? It's way cooler. Wish I'd done it first instead of the way we're doing it now. That's how much cooler it is. It's just not where we're at. So some of those things are inherent in the alternating model initiative, and some are not. And the ones that are not are candidates to be put into the living rule book before 2.0 is officially a thing.
Right.
Okay. So we are going to be upgrading the rules with these smoother, streamlined, better ways of doing business Potentially these scenarios, for example, in the upcoming, 25.2, 25.3, 26.1,
Right.
these rule books that are coming out, you're going to get that. And so the actual, package of change, 50% of it or more will already be in there by the time the official hand comes down and says, this is too long.
Right. So this isn't a one-time and done thing. This is going to be
It is a
gradual.
living rule book
That's
for
right.
a reason. That's right.
Right.
So, but one of the questions we had, for example, it's tied to this is, a player asked me, I'm not going to say it with my DM, but it was. The question was, when are you going to do this? Not exactly what date, because you're not giving us a date.
Right.
Are you doing this at a convention, or are you going to do this in between conventions? If you do it at a convention, it seems like it would be hard to do it at Adepticon, right? Because we have the North American Championship, and one thing we're going to be talking about is whether we do that on Friday instead of Saturday, because of player requests and things we've been asked. We'll look at that across the board, ask all our players about it. But even if we did that, right, normally a living rule book comes out for that convention because there's new releases, but the tournament is played the previous edition.
Exactly. It's not good for 30 days, right?
Right, yeah. So you're going to be playing, you come in there, you play 24-3 at the last Adepticon,
Right.
but you got 25-1 that weekend.
Right.
And you got to work rounds.
Right.
Okay. That would be even more problematic with the release of 2.0. That is a true statement.
Mm-hmm.
So probably in between events.
Mm-hmm.
So something in between. So the tournament pack will come along all the way through 26. And then Adepticon will end. It will be a new tournament pack. And oh my gosh, might those be some kind of scenarios that are linked to the new edition, right? And then the new edition drops sometimes after, because that is also going to come with new cards.
Right.
Because the model stack cards, we're going to make a heavy use of icons and we'll do some other things, and that's a complete set, pass through.
Yeah.
Okay?
A lot of cards because there's a lot of models.
Yeah. Well, if you own them all, yes. If you're a 1 or 2 faction person, it's two packs of $10 each. If you had to print it in, they're free, which is why we're not concerned about it.
Exactly.
We're already giving them to you for free. So, and something had to give to be able to do that cooler than we're doing it.
Absolutely, it does.
So that would be problematic at a convention. So probably, and if I had to guess right now at the pace things are going, the most likely time, and I know the names of the people that are listening to this, they're going to hold me to this name. F off, right? Is between Adepticon 26 and Gen Con 26. Now, that is written in jello because there's too many other things. There's the board game line, there's OSS, all these other projects. Can we hold to that? But it would not make sense to do it at a con, probably, but certainly not at Adepticon because of the North American Championship.
Yeah, I have some salt here in my hand, and you can take all of this with
a couple of grains of it. A grain of it, yeah. So, but the question was, how are we going to, address this possible drop? Just keep playing, because we're going to make it cooler each time,
right?
And then the ultimate cool drops,
Yeah. You're going to get a bird's eye view or a front row seat to what we're doing as we do it.
Right.
It's not like
I'll be
hurry up and wait thing. You know?
I'll be restarting Designer's Blog here this next week.
Awesome.
And so on the website, there'll be kind of the thoughts about this and previews of the kinds of things that are coming for those that are interested in that level of detail.
Right.
But I would tell you that there will be things that we are doing right now as part of the Streamline project that will be in 25.2.
Awesome.
Right, for Gen Con.
Yeah.
And some sexy new models.
Oh my gosh! That lineup was hot, anyways, right? Like a couple of 3 months ago, looking at the lineup of those models that was
the August release.
Release was amazing.
It just got amazinger.
Like over the last couple of weeks, it's just
what we're talking about here is that we have an 8 model release at Gen Con this year, first week of August. And it has been sexy all along, and we just made some changes to it to make it even better. It's just,
stupidly beautiful.
Yeah. I think when you're, the core members of your business are excited about the models you make and want to get them on the table, you're probably doing okay.
I think so, yeah.
Does the CEO of Games Workshop care about the next Space Marine that comes out?
I'm not sure that he does. She, they are.
Based on the way the game comes out, he doesn't even know what that is, but, we're not here to do that. Okay, so I would say don't be concerned about that. Please stay with us the whole process. It's just going to it's not going to be a drop off.
Right.
Where we announce it. Everything kind of goes dead.
We stop supporting it.
No new
That's
models come
fine.
out. No new rules come out. No new scenarios come out. And we ask you to rebuy a whole bunch of books, which we're not going to do. We're going to give you pieces of it right up until the last minute. We give you the last bit.
Yep.
It's really fundamentally all that is that last part gives you the whole structural change.
Right.
And because of the structural change, it impacts on the way certain spells and talents work. So that's got to be modified. Blade Dancer will still do Blade Dancer stuff. But obviously in a game where you have alternating activations, it works mechanically slightly different.
Right.
It does the same thing in the game for you, and it will do the same value of things for you.
Right.
You're going to have people disagree with that when it comes out, but,
Sure.
Math. That's all I gotta say. Math, yeah. There's math behind that. Yeah, there is. Crazy physics too.
Huh.
Yeah, it's nuts. So to answer those questions, we have a vague mark on the wall. We haven't tightened that down yet. Probably not at a con. Certainly not to mess with the Adepticon 26 plan.
No.
Also some cool models, right?
Yes.
A couple we've been talking about for a really long time,
Yes.
So and no new factions in those mixes. These are things across the board that are going to make existing factions sexier.
Well, for Adepticon 26, that's not entirely true.
Well, I'm going to talk about that later.
I just wanted to drop a teaser because I'm that kind of guy.
So until next week, before Matt leaves the rails here, that's our drop board question.
Completely off the rails, and I'm a scotch down, so there's a reason for that.
And I'm still chasing you here, so we got to fix it.
Yeah. All right, folks. Thank you very much for listening in today. We appreciate it always, everything that you do. If you have comments, concerns, complaints, you drop them right there in the Sleeping Grush podcast channel. If you have job board questions, those big why questions, drop them there or in the designer's notes. We love to see them. We'd love to answer them here. We appreciate it. Make sure to leave a like on whatever media you're listening to this on. And until next time, we'll see you around the table.
Sil Sakava.